All right, hey, boys and girls. So, got a great story for you. It's called Two Bad Ants. Now, take a look at those bad ants. Now, when you hear bad ants, right, if he's a bad kid or she's a bad mom or she's a bad whatever, what do you think? You think not good, right? So, bad ant, I wonder what bad ants do. Like, I know if someone's not being a good kid, maybe they're being disrespectful, maybe they're yelling, maybe they're hurting their friends. I wonder what bad ants do. So get some thoughts going there, make an inference. I wonder if bad ants, maybe they come and they take people's food at their houses. Maybe bad ants scare people, right? Think about what bad ants do. Here we go. Two bad ants. The news traveled swiftly through the tunnels of the ant world. A scout had returned with a remarkable discovery, a beautiful sparkling crystal. When the scout gave the crystal to the ant queen, she took a small bite and then quickly ate the entire thing. She deemed it, which means she declared it, she said, that it was the most delicious food she'd ever tasted. Nothing could make her happier than to have more, much more. And her ants understood. They were eager to gather more crystals because the queen was the mother of them all. Her happiness made the whole ant nest a happy place. So here is that ant, the scout ant, delivering the crystal to the queen. Interesting. It was late in the day when they departed. So now all the ants are going off to look for more of these crystals, okay? Long shadows stretched over the entrance to the ant kingdom. One by one, the insects crawled out. Following the scout, who had made it clear, there were many crystals where the first had been found. But the journey was long and dangerous. Okay, so to make this make sense for you, the scout ant says, hey, I know where the crystals are. You got to follow me, but it's going to be a hard journey. It's going to be a dangerous journey. They marched into the woods that surrounded their underground home. Dusk turned to twilight, twilight to night. The path they followed twisted and turned, every bend leading them deeper into the dark forest. Now, when it says leading them deeper into the dark forest, this picture here, what do you think the dark forest is? Now, I know what I think of when I think of a dark forest. I think of giant trees. But remember, these are ants. These are teeny, teeny, tiny guys. The forest is actually grass. They're walking through the grass, but it seems like a forest. There was a movie when I was a kid called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And the kids were in the grass. And I remember them trying to climb the little stalks of grass, and they looked like these giant towers. More than one line of ants stopped and anxiously listened for the sounds of hungry spiders. But all they heard was the call of crickets echoing in the distance. Dew formed on the leaves above. Without warning, huge drops, cold drops, fell on the marching ants. A firefly passed overhead that for an instant lit up the woods with a blinding flash of blue-green light. So they're still walking through the forest, which is really the grass. I wonder where they're going to go. At the edge of the forest stood a mountain. A mountain. Look at the mountain. If you look at this page close, you know what those almost look like? Think of houses. They're red, they're hard, they're rectangular. Bricks. The ants looked up and could not even see the top. It seemed to reach right into the heavens, but they did not stop. Up the side they climbed higher and higher. The wind whistled through the cracks of the mountain's face. The ants could feel its force bending their delicate antennae. Their legs grew weak as they struggled upward. At last, they reached a ledge and crawled through a narrow tunnel. So they're climbing up the edge of the mountain. Of the mountain. Now look at this picture. What does that look like? Yeah, it looks like a window. So the mountain is actually a house that they're climbing. Nice inference. When the ants came out of the tunnel, they found themselves in a strange world. Smells they had known all their lives. Smells of dirt and grass and rooting plants had vanished. There was no more wind. Most puzzling of all, it seemed like the sky was gone. Well, why was the sky gone? Yes, because they're inside of a house. They're looking up. There's no sky. There's a ceiling. But this two ants, this is a brand new world. They crossed smooth, shiny surfaces, then followed the scout up a glassy, curved wall. They had reached their goal. From the top of the wall, they looked below to a sea of crystals. One by one, the ants climbed down into the sparkling treasure. Now, this is where you're really going to make an inference. This is something that everyone probably has in their house. I see the jar over here, and I see G-A-R. which is part of a word. It's this white stuff that's in cereal and in lots of things that we like that are sweet. And it's called sugar. Yes, sugar. What do the ants want? Sugar. Quickly, they each chose a crystal, then turned to start the journey home. So now they're going to go back to the queen to give her crystals. There was something about this unnatural place that made the ants very nervous. In fact, they left in such a hurry that none of them noticed two small ants who stayed behind. Maybe they're the two bad ants. Why go back? One asked the other. This place might not feel like home, but look at all these crystals. You're right, said the other. We could stay here and eat this tasty treasure forever. So the two ants ate crystal after crystal until they were too full to move, and they fell asleep. Daylight came. The sleeping ants were unaware of changes taking place in their newfound home. A giant silver scoop hovered above them. Now, this is where I really want you to start making inferences. So, if you think of sugar in your house, now there's a giant metal scoop. It wouldn't be giant to us, but what would we use to scoop up sugar? A spoon! Yes, a spoon! It plunged deep into the crystals. It shoveled up both ants and crystals and carried them high into the air. So now the ants are in the spoon, being lifted into the air. The ants were wide awake, and when the scoop turned, dropping them from a frightening height, they tumbled through a space in a shower of crystals and fell into a boiling brown lake. Now, talk about making inferences and inferring. Think about something your parents, grandparents, maybe even older brothers and sisters have in the morning that's brown, that's liquid, that's hot. They might put sugar in it. Okay, now I'm ready for the day. Coffee! Yes! Look at this. Then the giant scoop stirred violently back and forth. Crushing waves fell over the ants. They paddled hard to keep their tiny heads above water. But the scoop kept spinning the hot brown liquid. Around and around it went, creating a whirlpool that sucked the ants deeper and deeper. They both held their breath and finally bobbed to the surface, gasping for air and spitting mouthfuls of terrible, bitter water. Look at this picture. What's the person about to do with the coffee? Yep, that's a nose. That's a mouth. They're going to drink it. Then the lake tilted and began to empty into a cave. The ants could hear the rushing water and felt themselves being pulled towards the pitch-black hole. Suddenly, the cave disappeared and the lake became calm. The two ants swam to the shore and found the lake. Found the lake had steep sides, so they climbed to the edge of the cup. They hurried down the walls that held back the lake. The frightening insects looked for a place to hide, worried that the giant scoop might grab them again. Close by, they found a huge round disc with holes that they could neatly hide in. Now, this is a tough one to figure out. I will tell you, that's like a bagel or an English muffin. And look at this in here, red hot. Can you tell what that is? Where might you put a bagel to make it warm and toasty? Yes, a toaster! But as soon as they climbed inside, their hiding place was lifted, tilted, and lowered into a dark space. When the ants climbed out of the holes, they were surrounded by a strange red glow. It seemed to them that every second the temperature was rising. It soon became so unbearably hot that they thought they would soon be cooked and killed. But suddenly, the round discs were shot upwards towards the ceiling, and the two hot ants went flying through the air. See them? Whee! They landed near what seemed to be a fountain, a waterfall pouring from a silver tube. Both ants had a powerful thirst and longed to dip their feverish heads into the refreshing water. They quickly climbed up the tube. As they got closer to the rushing water, the ants felt a cool spray. They tightly gripped the shiny surface of the fountain and slowly leaned their heads into the falling stream. But the force of the water was too strong. Now, what do you think this is in your house? It's in your kitchen. It's like a fountain, and water comes out of it. Yes! Yes, it's your faucet! The tiny insects were pulled from the fountain and plunged down into a wet, dark chamber. They landed on half-eaten fruit and other soggy things. Suddenly, their air was filled with loud, frightening sounds, and the chamber began to spin. Now, most of you probably don't have one of these in your house. This is called a garbage disposal. You put all the food down in your sink, and there's like these little grinders that spin it all up and make it small so that it can be just kind of processed. The ants were caught in a whirling storm of shredded food and stinging rain. Just then, as quickly as it started, the noise and spinning stopped. Bruised and dizzy, the ants climbed out of the chamber. I bet you these ants right now are regretting staying. In daylight, once again, they raced through puddles and up a smooth metal wall, and in the distance they saw something comforting. 2 long, narrow holes that reminded them of the warmth and safety of their old underground home. They climbed up the dark openings. But there was no safety inside these holes. A strange force passed through the wet ants. They were stunned senseless and blown out of the holes like bullets from a gun. When they landed, the tiny insects were too exhausted to go on. They crawled into a dark corner and fell asleep. Can you tell what they climbed into? Yeah, that's an outlet, a plug. They got shocked. Night had returned when the battered ants woke to a familiar sound. The footsteps of their fellow insects returning for more crystals. So now the whole day has gone, and now at night, the other ants are coming back to get the crystals. Do you think they're going to choose to stay? Why not? Right. Did this go well for them? No, they almost drowned. They were almost burned. They were almost shredded. They almost drowned. Of course it didn't go well. The 2 ants slipped quietly to the end of the line. They climbed the glassy wall and once again stood and stared at the treasure of the crystals. But this time they each chose a single crystal, and they followed their friends back home. Standing at the edge of their anthole, the 2 ants listened to the joyful sounds that came from below. They knew how grateful their mother queen would be when they gave her the crystals. At that moment, the 2 ants felt happier than they'd ever felt before. This was their home, this was their family, and this is where they were meant to be. In the end. Now, this story by Chris Van Allsburg, who also wrote The Polar Express, which many of you will know, there were many opportunities for us to make inferences. And again, when you make an inference, you take the clues in the book, you take what you know, and you make a guess, right? It's almost like a math problem, right? You take the first part of the problem is what happened in the book, the evidence. Then you take your schema, and it equals an inference. Now, in that story, when they said that they went plunging into hot, boiling, brown water, and you saw someone's mouth, I bet you a few of you are like coffee, totally coffee, right? Because you made an inference. Maybe mom drinks it in the morning. Maybe dad drinks it in the morning. Okay, now here's my crazy idea. Okay, I'm not sure I should even tell you this, but I'm going to. I want to make an inference. I want to show you how we can use this in the real world. So on my street, there's these neighbors. I'll tell you more about it in the next video. But there's these neighbors that never come out of their house. Windows are always shut, doors always shut, garage doors always shut. I don't know if there's children, I don't know if there's pets, I don't know anything. And they live just about 2 houses away. And a guy like me who likes to make friends and talk to people, it makes me crazy because I kind of want to know, like, hey, what's going on over there? Like, maybe they have kids, they want to play with Maeve, they want to play with Addison. So I've got an idea. Tomorrow is garbage night at my house. So I thought what I could do is take a little bag of garbage, not stealing, but take a little bag of garbage once they put their garbage out to the curb. And I could take it and I can open it with you here on a video, and we could try to use those clues to figure out, like, what's going on in that house. Are there adults only? Are there kids? Are there pets? I don't know. So, I'm going to do it. I'll video the whole thing for you. So I'll see you next time. We're going to make more inferences. Say inferences. Excellent. See you next time.